Reality Check, the real estate podcast where you'll get a behind-the-scenes look at home buying, selling, and investing with your hosts, Jamie DeSimone with the Homes for All team at Keller Williams Capital Properties, and
Stacy Holscher with eXp Realty.
Every week, we'll bring you new content related to home buying, selling, and investing. But unlike most podcasts, we're going to shine a light on what happens behind the scenes. This show is good for anyone who has an interest in real estate, consumer and realtors alike. We chose this first topic because it isn't unusual for a client or friend we work with to think, hey, this looks easy, and I want to get my real estate license. But the reality is that nearly 80% of all licensees drop out by year 2. Unfortunately, the current broker team model encourages everyone and tends to take anyone with a pulse. They tell you the good, but not the bad or the ugly. In this week's Reality Check, we will go over the pros and cons and the reality of going into real estate. So, first and foremost, right, we're going to go over the 8 things you need to know before getting your license. And I would say the first thing is education and testing requirements. So, what are they for Virginia?
So in the state of Virginia, you can take the coursework, which is kind of cool, either online or in person. So depending on how you prefer to learn, you have options where you can do it online. There's a whole bunch of vendors. That's how I did it. How'd you do it?
I actually did it here at MVAR.
Oh, what a great little plug. Yeah. That's awesome.
Well, I'm an association person through and through, so that's where I got my start.
Definitely understand that. And then you have to take a 60-hour course with the state of Virginia, through these educational courses. And let's see, what would you say about the coursework? Does it prepare you for the role?
Unfortunately, no, it does not prepare you to do real estate. So you take the 60 hours worth of coursework, you learn a lot about fair housing. You learn really important things like how many square feet are in an acre, stuff like that.
43,560.
See, just in case. But you learn a lot of kind of real estate adjacent things. You learn about kind of history of real estate, things like that. But you really don't know is how to actually do real estate. So then you have to sit for the test. So there's online testing or in-person testing. Mm-hmm. I think just in Virginia you have to do in-person, but for DC, yes, also in-person. So there's satellite places where you can do that. The interesting thing about that is people fail that a lot.
A lot. So, myself included, I failed my DC exam the first time around, and I am a crazy test taker. I really like to study. So I was shocked, but those tests can be tricky.
They can be. This is not a brag, but I actually passed both of them on my first time around. But I also studied like a crazy person. So same thing. A lot of practice tests.
Yes, highly recommend.
But it is not unusual to hear of people who have taken the test, 8, 9, 10 times before they pass. So just know that takes time and money. So that's kind of the first thing. The failure rates, as I mentioned before, so you get your license, and we'll kind of talk a little bit about where you go from there, but 80% of people drop out by year 2. A lot of people that you start in real estate with won't stay in real estate that long, and it is a decidedly difficult profession to stay in. But where you start is by choosing a broker. So, and Stacy has a lot of broker experience because she was a broker for a very long time. Well, she's still a broker.
Still a broker.
That doesn't change.
No longer a managing broker, but I'm
not a managing broker. Correct. So, tell me some things about how decisions get made on how people want to choose a broker and or what they do once they get in the door.
Yeah, so typically agents start interviewing with brokerages. And the interesting thing about this is that it quite often can feel like candidates are interviewing the brokerage instead of the brokerage interviewing the candidate. So it feels a little bit like role reversal compared to most jobs in the world.
And you should be interviewing the brokerage.
Definitely.
Yeah, you should come in with your list of questions too. It's not just about how much they like you. Because like I said earlier, they do lean towards people with a pulse.
Yes, most brokers are happy to have any licensee who plans to do any business whatsoever to be on their team.
Yeah.
So from there, you go through the interview process, and we highly, highly suggest that you guys have some questions ready to ask the person that you're going to be meeting with. Some questions that I think are good to ask are really about the structure. So is this a team format? Are they looking for somebody who's a solo or independent agent? Is this a partner situation where two agents partner up and work business together? A little bit more about how that will look. If you're a new agent, the most important thing I would ask though is about mentorship. Who is going to help you learn the ropes, and how is that going to work, and what does that mean for me financially?
Right, because as we mentioned before, you take the test and you don't know how to sell a home yet. And you need a good mentor or coach or partner or somebody who is going to oversee that you're understanding how the contracts. So all of a sudden you got your real estate license and you're expected to know all these contracts. And we have a ton of contracts and addendums and disclosures and all the things. I mean, you can start off very simply by just starting to read them. But honestly, having a good mentor that's showing you the ropes on that side. But then you got to get business. So, picking a great brokerage that has some really good options for you to get great solid training. So then the second thing you need to know. So, right, the first thing was about licensing and education and testing. Second was choosing your broker. Third thing you need to know is you are starting your own business. I think that a lot of people assume that they're going to get their license and go to a brokerage. So, I walked into Keller Williams, and I did not, fortunately, because I had done my background work, but I did not expect them to hand me business. But a lot of people walk into a brokerage and they just say, okay, I'm here. You're going to give me business, right? And that's not how it works.
Wrong.
Wrong. Exactly. And unfortunately, now there are some structures. So you can do a team structure where you are coming in under a team. And there are some actual W-2 positions under teams where you might be a showing agent or something in which that is an actual W-2 position. But then you're going to have a salary. I mean, you're going to go in, it's like any other job, and you're going to interview and you're going to have a salary and whatnot. Majority of people in real estate are 990 employees. That means we are independent contractors. Independent contractors means we're on our own. So the good, bad, and the ugly of that is we're starting our own business. Accountability. We have to be accountable to ourselves, right?
Yeah, there's no schedule that gets posted for you where you're told you have to be in, every day from, 9 to 5. It is your own self-motivation. You're holding yourself accountable to where you're supposed to be and when.
And what's so weird about that is that people often choose to go into real estate because the flexibility of the schedule. But here's the deal. If you're not finding yourself business, then you have no schedule, you have no business. So yes, there's flexibility somewhat, but you do have to create your perfect daily schedule in which you are sitting down and doing the work of finding your business.
Yeah, I usually tell folks that this is what I consider an on-call job. You might not be planning to work, but you are during every waking hour available for your clients.
Yeah, exactly. So with starting your own business, you're coming up with your own branding. You're coming up with kind of your niche market, right? Yeah. Mine is people with pets. That's kind of one of my niche markets. I actually love doing move-up buyers and people who are flipping properties. What kind of things do you like doing?
Well, I absolutely love working with first-time buyers and first-time sellers, just kind of ushering folks through the first time they've been through that process. It's a huge milestone. It makes me feel really good. And, as a military wife, it holds a special place in my heart. So I do love working with military families because I am very empathetic to their very frequent moves.
Oh, yeah. And in the DC Metro, we are very used to working with military people. But at any rate, the next thing is banking and credit cards, right? You got to go open up your business bank account. You should have a business credit card. You got to start tracking your expenses and mileage because guess what? You got to pay your what? Taxes. People forget that those big commission checks that come in, there's a lot that comes out of them, and we'll talk about that in a second. So you don't just get to stuff that commission check into your bank account and run off to Nordstrom or wherever, the Bahamas.
Although I do hear stories about people doing that.
Oh yeah, on their first one, I've heard some horror stories about
crazy,
that. Yeah.
And then you got to sell a house because you owe Uncle Sam.
Yeah.
About that.
And health insurance, right? If you are not lucky enough to have a spouse that has a great health insurance policy that you can be on, now you're on the hook for your own health insurance. You're not getting that through your brokerage. Some brokerages have plans that you can buy into, but those are really not much better than marketplace plans, really. But yeah, so there you go. You're running your own business. So what's the fourth thing we need to know how to do?
Fourth thing we need to know how to do is, now we're getting more into the business side. We're talking about our income and expenses, the money coming in, and of course, all the money coming out.
Yeah, so let's talk about the fees that we're responsible for. So to say that going into real estate is an expensive endeavor is a little bit of an understatement. I think that people don't understand that there are fees that just happen annually, quarterly, monthly, weekly, in some cases.
Daily, hourly, yearly.
Daily, you name it. So to start off, we have our basic fees, right? Our MLS, our licensing fees, our continuing education fees. Along with that is our realtor membership, right? So wearing my trusty pin here to be a member of NAR. When you're a member of the local association, you're also a member of the state association and the national association. So you pay those fees. Then you have what?
Well, then you have all the equipment that you need. And you might not realize just how much entails in that. It's everything from lock boxes, and most agents use multiple types.
Mm-hmm.
There's signs, like the big yard signs, see people out there. Then there's directionals, the small yard signs. There's riders, the signs that go on top of the yard signs.
Open house signs.
Open house signs. There are
a lot of signs.
Every type of marketing you could possibly imagine, you will be picking up at some point.
And you got to be able to store all those signs somewhere, just so you know.
A lot will be in the trunk of your car.
Yes.
You just get used to that part.
So you need a car with a big enough trunk to put all these signs in. We didn't even talk about that yet. Anyhow, the other thing is you have office equipment, right? I mean, you have a laptop, you have other technology that you may need. Cell phone. You cannot live without a good cell phone.
Great service.
And that is something, you have to have good service. And that's something that honestly, you can't really be in business with a 10-year-old cell phone. You got to kind of keep it update to keep up with some of the technology that's out there.
Highly suggest you have a hotspot set up on your cell phone too as well, because you're often going to be doing things on this laptop in strange places, parking lots, in between appointments, sitting there typing up an offer. So you want to have internet everywhere you go.
Yeah, this is your best friend. You're taking it everywhere. So you have actual cost of sales. So, sorry, I forgot to mention, along with our computer and our cell phone, we also have a ton of technology we have to pay for. Because in case you haven't figured it out, real estate is a technology business these days. So there's a lot of technology we're paying for, everything from, like I pay for .loop, which is transaction management. We have a CRM database that we have to track all of our stuff in.
Yeah.
Some brokerages provide this, but some it's a technology fee. So
some there's a separate fee. Electronic signing is a big thing, and nobody's actually signing in paper these days until they get to the settlement table. Little things that you might not even think of. We were just talking before we started about Canva. So, everybody's heard of Canva, but there are just so many pieces of software that you will find you picking up for $100, $200 here and there throughout the year that help towards your marketing efforts or promoting your business.
$15 a month here, $30 a month there, $300 a year here.
It adds up.
It really adds up. And then you get down to your cost of sales. So you get a listing, great, that's great. Now we're gonna put a property on the market. Oof. Gotta have the signs. Gotta have a sign post, right? Gotta have a sign post that holds that sign. Gotta do some staging and some photography, floor plans,
3D scan perhaps.
Yeah.
If you're on a remote property and you can actually put a drone up, maybe we'll put a drone up and take some aerial photos too.
Mm-hmm. Brochures. All of those marketing expenses, that comes out of your pocket. It doesn't come out of your brokerage's pocket.
Or the seller's pocket.
Or the seller's pocket.
It comes out of yours.
That's yours. That's why you're charging a commission, is that you have expenses that you have to cover with that. Then we get down into commission splits and brokerage fees. And those can be all over the place. So we mentioned earlier that there's a team structure. Why don't you talk a little bit about how some of the team structures work?
Yeah, so typically with a team, you have a team lead that is working to generate business and lead opportunities for the agents on the team. And then those opportunities are dispersed amongst the team, and the agents work them and hopefully, get these folks to the closing table and help them buy or sell. One little piece of that, though, and I say little, and I probably should say huge piece of that, is that a large percentage of that commission is going to be due to the team leader who actually went out and procured that opportunity for the agent.
Yeah. And to be clear, when we say procured an opportunity, that doesn't always mean that they're handing you ready business that's going to go buy a house tomorrow. That means that they've given you a name and some contact information, and now you have to do follow-up to see if you can convert that person into a buyer or a seller.
And sometimes that person's information was sold to multiple teams.
Yeah.
So you are doing the same work that, potentially half a dozen other agents are doing at the same time.
Exactly. So, and then along with teams, this is just the reality, right? If you are an unknown quantity, you don't have a history of closing deals, they're not giving you the best leads. They're kind of giving you the worst leads, and they're going to prove yourself in order to get some of the best leads. And the best leads might be repeat business, or might be something that's a little bit more of a sure thing. Then we have the commission splits with the brokerage itself.
Yeah.
So sometimes you're doing a team split, and this really gets down into individual brokerages. They're all structured a little bit different, so you just have to do your due diligence on figuring out what that is. But if you're on a team, you could pay a team split and a percentage to the brokerage. If you're a solo agent, like I am, you could just be paying a split with the brokerage. So the brokerage is getting a cut of your commission, and those splits go anywhere from, I've seen them anywhere from really 20% on to 50% of your commission.
Yep, and there are a few types of new emerging brokerage models that do offer splits that are around the same, all the way up to nothing, where they just charge a fee per transaction. Of course, it's one of those things that typically what is provided to you is usually similar to what you're paying in. So some of these brokerage models where maybe you don't pay quite as much, you get less, and then you go source whatever you need on your own and pay for that financially. There's a ton of different structures, but a huge chunk, 20 to 50%, typically will be going to your broker.
Right. And then as we mentioned earlier, you got to pay your taxes on your commissions. So you're taking another chunk out of that commission and you're putting it aside to pay taxes. So you're paying these monthly fees, these desk fees, these brokerage fees, your taxes, your health insurance. What's the median gross income of a realtor?
Yeah, so I had to look this up because I knew the number was lower than one might think, so we gave it a look, and in 2022, the median income for a realtor in the U.S. was $56,400.
Yeah. So, in some areas of the country, that's great. That's nothing to sneeze at, but that is not the selling sunset that you might get the impression of. So we call it the Pareto principle. It's the 80-20 rule. So right now we have how many agents in, I forget how many agents are in NAR. It is something like...
NAR, we have about 1.5 million.
Yeah, so 1.5 million agents. 80% of those agents aren't doing a whole lot. 20% of the agents do 80% of the sales. So the people that you're seeing on TV or the top producers that you hear about, that's the 20% of everybody who has a license. And the rest of the people are just trying to scrape by and make a living. Now, you can do well in real estate. We're not trying to say that this is you're going to fail, because that's not the case for everybody. We're just trying to lay out the reality that it is very much a difficult job, and you are in control of everything that you're doing to generate business and to bring in income. So the fifth most important thing that you need to know is that you're always on the hunt for business. The hustle is real, y'all.
Yes, it never, ever stops.
And if you know anybody who's a realtor, and I apologize, because my friends are like, it's great. Fortunately, my friends love me, or I hope they love me. But my friends are, the first question they ask is like, how's business? What's going on with real estate? But you know, you start feeling like a broken record because every time you're in a conversation with anybody, you have to bring it up. Because nobody is just coming to you out of the blue and saying, hey, do you want to sell my house? You have to stay top of mind. And it doesn't matter. Do you have any horror stories about friends or family?
Oh, well, I do. I do have some horror stories, but I think I will just leave it at some tears were shed, some feelings were hurt, and then, you know, I had to realize that everything happens for a reason and do some analyzing of myself and, you know, see whether or not there was anything I could be accountable for. And yeah, let's just say earlier in my career, I didn't do a great job at being vocal about my career. And I think that was to my own detriment.
And yeah, what do we mean by all this? Your friends and family aren't guaranteed to use you. And the biggest soul crush, the biggest stab through the heart is when you get your fresh license and it's hot off the press and you're like, oh, this is great. My friend is planning to sell her home. And you call your friend and they're like, oh, we've already signed with such and such. Or we want to use the agent in our neighborhood. Or we want to use somebody that's been in business for a long time. Or we're not comfortable mixing real estate with friends. Or whatever reason they give, it's going to happen. And it's going to happen more often than you think it's going to happen. And that's tough. But, you know, I will say 12 years into my business, that did happen. Two of my closest friends, my very first year of real estate, both sold their homes with different agents. But what I can happily say is that since then, they have used me for all of their real estate transactions. And they actually even apologized. They were like, I can't believe that we didn't.
They clearly learned the error in their ways. Yeah.
They did. They clearly learned the error. But the fact is that that's going to happen. It's going to be your next door neighbor. It's going to be your best friend. It's going to be somebody that your kid goes to school with. It doesn't matter. And that's a little bit crushing. So if you are planning to get into real estate, I would tell you right now, you got to start pulling together everybody you know. We call it the sphere of influence. Your SOI. And pull together at least 100 people, all of their contact information. And you got to get in front of those people right away. So, number 6. What's the 6th most important thing we need to know, Stacy?
That is continuing education. We've got to stay on top of our game.
Yeah. So there's continuing education is required by law. So those are CEs, and we have, how many credits?
16 hours, I believe.
16, yes, correct. 16 hours of credits that we have to get every few years. That's like, you're thinking, oh, that's easy. But here's the deal. You are not a good agent if you are not on top of what's going on in the market, in the country. You're not understanding of the economy. You're not constantly reading about real estate. You're not watching about real estate. When I say watching about real estate, I'm not talking about HGTV or
No,
Selling
I actually don't watch those shows at all, do you? Okay.
No, not really. Having a business coach or some sort of somebody that's helping you be good at what you do. So you are constantly doing that continuing education or learning how to be better at business.
And that's not just behind a computer screen or even in a classroom, but there are tons of events that you can actually get out and network, learn something, hear guest speakers. So a lot of times you'll find that like the local association of realtors will host things. There are just tons of different real estate offices in the area who will also open their doors and invite anybody in the industry nearby. But at least a couple times a week, I'm doing something to learn more about this industry so that I am a better realtor.
Yeah, you have to, you really do have to stay on top of your game. Yeah, it really is important. So let's talk about the everyday work of being in real estate.
So it's just looking at houses, right?
Oh, no. Oh, I wish it was just looking at houses, right? Everybody, how many times you talk to somebody, especially because you were a managing broker, and you would talk to newbies coming in, and what did they tell you why they wanted to go into real estate?
I love looking at houses.
Love looking at houses.
Which I do too, to be fair.
I do too. But you know what? I will be honest. I do. But then there's a point where I can tell you every single floor plan that's out there. We have seen all the houses. Now, that's not to say that we've seen all the decor of every house, and there's definitely things that are interesting and great. But there's only so many things. If you're working in townhouses, there's only so many townhouses around, right? You're not going to be like in awe. You know, the things you see on TV are people going to look at $5 million palatial estates. Personally, I've never sold a $5 million palatial estate. Have you ever sold a $5 million palatial estate?
Not yet, but if anyone has one to sell,
yeah, give us a call. But the point is that, you know, the everyday average house is not, it's great. It's fun. Love doing it. But it's, you know, it's showing homes.
Even my buyers will say they tend to start to blur together.
Yeah, they do.
After you see a couple, they
really
tend to start
do.
to blur together.
So what's our everyday work look at, like, if it's not showing homes?
Well, it's a lot of time at my computer, that's for sure, with my phone usually right next to me. It's a lot of emails and a whole lot of phone calls. A lot of phone calls. A lot of follow-up in every way, shape, or form. Emails, texts, phone calls, videos,
Database management, which is like the bane of my existence. I hate it. But you have to manage a CRM because you're only as good as your CRM, right? Your business is only as good as the CRM that you have working in the background.
So things that she means like by that are, you know, celebrating anniversaries for when you help somebody buy or sell a house, celebrating their anniversary, birthdays, their wedding anniversary, babies. I mean, we get to be a part of a lot of really fun things.
We do.
So you get to celebrate a lot of those things, and that's what we're doing in our CRM. We're reaching out, we're touching base. A lot of agents like to reach out periodically and just update their past clients on their home value.
Yeah. And events, right? We throw some events. We have client appreciation events where we may bring in speakers that are addressing a need of our clients. Like I've done estate planning seminars or things like that. But sometimes I've done a winery event where we just bring people in and we drink wine and we bring our dogs and we talk about dogs and we drink wine.
That sounds perfect.
Play games and enjoy the sunshine. But that's all part of it. Don't forget, you're paying for all that. So the schedule, though.
Yeah, so I like to tell folks that you are generally on call and available most of your waking hours for your clients.
Yeah.
It's good and healthy to set some boundaries, but real estate tends to happen at all sorts of hours. And more frequently, it'll happen when your clients aren't at work.
Yeah, and which means that you might be putting your kids to bed or cooking dinner or trying to do something. We could probably come up with a million horror stories of agents who quite literally getting ready to walk down the aisle of their wedding negotiating contracts. People on vacations. There's no such thing as a vacation without your laptop. I was able to take one once because I went out of the country and I was very clear. I passed off like my business to somebody for the 10 days I was gone.
Which she paid for.
Which you pay for. Exactly. But you are always working. And the market controls your schedule a little bit. So right now, we're talking about a pretty quick moving market, which means that when a property goes on the market, we have to get a client out to see it. That means if we have something planned for Friday afternoon, that might have to go to the wayside because we have to get our client out to see a property. Or you can pay a showing agent to see it, but you pay for that.
Again, you're still paying for it.
Everyday work includes the dreaded taxes again. You'll hear me talk about taxes and paperwork until the cows come home.
But it is an everyday task keeping up with your taxes and financials, that's for sure.
And then, you're finding those clients. Now you have to do a listing presentation, buyer's presentations. You have to pull together all of the market statistics, right? If you're getting ready to go in to sell their house, you don't just walk in the door and say, okay, I'm going to sell your house. I brought a sign. No, you have to go through a whole reason and pricing and all that stuff with them. So you're pulling together all that information. There's other things that we've left out, I'm sure. There's a lot of beating your head against a wall. we probably left that out.
Yeah, that's for sure. There's a lot of conversations with agents too as well. So a lot of these calls that you're taking aren't just with your clients or potential clients. It's with the agents on the other side of the transaction. Might not even be a transaction yet. It could just be a showing.
Right.
Sometimes in this market, it can be difficult to even get into a property because it's so busy.
Oh yeah, scheduling showings. I didn't even say that. Scheduling showings can take up, you'd be surprised. You have 5 showings that you got to do, right? And you have one availability. There's one showing opening for a half an hour at noon.
On the other side of the county.
On the other side of the county. And then the next availability is at 3 p.m. So you're driving back and forth and you're trying to get people scheduled. And you have 15-minute showing windows or half-hour showing windows where people have to make every decision in the world in 30 minutes or less. So there's a lot of navigation of that going on too.
Yeah, and all of these tasks are done at your own schedule. You're creating that schedule of when it's going to happen. So if you aren't really into self-motivating yourself, it could be really hard to make those phone calls when you're not super excited about it.
Exactly. And, Stacy touched on a great point about talking to agents. A lot of transactions, the relationship with the agent starts before anything. And we have such a big part of our job is creating great relationships outside of these transactions with the agents in our market, so that when we submit an offer, they recognize our name, they know who we are, and they're ready to work with us. So there's a lot going on there, as well as contractors.
Oh, so many contractors.
We are constantly maintaining
Plumbers,
lists of
handymen,
contractors.
Stagers, painters,
all
tile
the people,
landscapers.
I mean, masonry.
You need someone,
yeah.
We got someone.
We got somebody. We got a guy or a woman. But we got somebody for you. But lastly, the 8th thing that's important to know is real estate can be fun. It can. And what are some of the fun things that you enjoy?
I mean, the most fun for me is getting to meet so many interesting people.
Oh my God.
The stories, I think we're really lucky to live in, the DC metro area. So it's such a transient area
We
in and
have
out.
so many amazing people. I've worked with a state senator before.
That's awesome.
There's so many people that work with, there's people who've worked with, athletes. We get a lot of
hockey players. I had somebody in my old team used to work with a couple Caps players. So yeah,
I have a story of an agent who walked in to show a home and opened up the door, and Alexander Ovechkin answered the door. So that's kind of cool. But there are people. We just meet great people, and every transaction is different. That's what's also cool. There are some that are like, you drink daily trying to get to the finish line. But there are others that you're kind of sad when they end, right?
And you make friends too. There's a pool of past clients that I still get together with for coffee, lunch, drinks, all sorts of things. It's wonderful. Yeah.
We love keeping in touch with our past clients, right? The people that we've connected with, we help them do the biggest thing in their lives. So that's really fun to be a part of their family and kind of be kept in the loop on what's going on.
It's amazing, like helping, maybe a young couple or buying their first place together. And then, you get the email about a year later and there's a little one on the way. And it's just so exciting to be part of that.
Exactly. So much fun. But, what else? Well, we mentioned looking at homes. Looking at homes can be fun. Learning new communities. Sometimes not even the home itself, but kind of like certain neighborhoods you're in and you're like, I had no idea there was a park like that here, or these certain amenities that exists around Northern Virginia, or just some really great things that you run into. But ultimately, you do get to control your own destiny.
For better or for worse.
Right? But let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. It's pretty exciting knowing that, however hard I work, basically, and whatever hours and time and effort I want to put in, like, I have the opportunity to recoup that financially. Like, the harder I work, the more I'm going to earn. In the traditional world outside of real estate, you
have
don't
a
really
cap.
see that.
Yeah.
The sky isn't the limit.
Exactly. In a traditional job, you have a salary, and this is the salary, and doesn't matter what your workload is that week, that's still your salary. In real estate, it can change. Now, keeping in mind that, and I don't want anybody to ever feel bad, but sometimes a lot of work doesn't yield results. There's a lot of people that spin their wheels and they do all the right things and they still don't close deals. So, yes, you can control your destiny, but there's no guarantee.
To an extent, of course.
To an extent. Yeah. So those are kind of the 8 things you need to know before you decide to get your real estate license.
And then if you decide to get it, could probably do a whole separate episode on literally every piece of this.
Honestly, yeah. And you know what? If you ever want to reach out about getting into real estate, feel free to reach out to Stacy or I to talk about opportunities at EXP or at Keller Williams, or even just getting into real estate in general, and you have questions that you want answered. We're a great resource for you. We are located in Northern Virginia, and we are also licensed in DC. So, and Stacy's also licensed in Maryland. So, we can help anybody in those areas that are looking to buy or sell real estate as well.
Yeah, we'd be happy to.
So, yes. So please find us, follow us, subscribe for our next podcast. And we look forward to seeing you on the next Reality Check, the Real Estate Podcast. Thanks a lot.